Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. Right now, I'm going to say good morning because I'm just a little bit west of Philadelphia, but I am sure that as I look around the virtual room, I might also say good afternoon or good evening, and perhaps even for some people, good middle of the night because you may be dialing in from a time zone around the world. It's so nice to have you here. My name is Leona Brandwene. I serve as the Associate Director of Education at the Positive Psychology Center here at the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm so glad that you've joined us for our info session related to our Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. We have a couple of team members that are going to be taking you through today's event. Right now, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Laura Taylor. Laura, would you be willing to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura. I'm the managing coordinator of positive education here at the Positive Psychology Center and importantly, support the MAPP team. I'm delighted to be here today. I'm here in Philadelphia and we're really curious to know where you are from. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your location in the chat, you can find that in the lower portion of your Zoom toolbar. Go in and enter into the chat and share with everyone where you're dialing in from today. We would love that. Leona?
Wonderful. I'm looking and I'm seeing, oh my goodness, from all around the world, from India, Philippines, Singapore. It looks like Chicago. Oh my goodness, it's going so fast I can't even keep up. Wow, this is extraordinary. I would just encourage everybody, take a look at that chat. It's so wonderful. What amazing technology we have to be able to be with so many people from around the world in the same space. It's just an extraordinary experience. So wherever you are hailing from, we're so glad that you're here. In addition to Laura, we also have three other team members that are joining us. First, we have Aaron Boczkowski. Aaron, if you'd give a wave so that people can see you. That would be awesome.
Hi,
And
everybody.
Nicole, hey, perfect. And Nicole Stottlemyre. Nicole, do you want to say hello?
Good morning, afternoon, evening, middle of the night.
Awesome. And Amy, would you be willing to say hello to our team?
Hello, everyone.
Wonderful. So we have a wonderful team that's here with us today. And so they will be responding to any questions or concerns that you have in the chat. We're going to try to continue to answer some of those over the course of the morning session. And if we move quickly enough today, we'll be able to reserve a little bit of time at the end of our session to have some live Q&A where we'll be able to answer some questions during the session. So if all of you feel ready, give me a virtual thumbs up and we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive in. Okay, so let's go ahead. And this is our agenda for today. So we are going to cover a little bit about positive psychology, and then we're really going to spend the lion's share of our time talking about the MAPP program. And specifically, we'll be looking at the program through the lens of our faculty, through the lens of our students, through the lens of our alumni, and then we'll spend some time answering some questions. So let's go ahead and get started with a little bit about a positive psychology overview. What is this field of positive psychology? Well, some of you may see this image and be familiar with this gentleman. So Martin A.P. Seligman, or Marty, as he's affectionately known as here at the Positive Psychology Center, is the Zellerbach Family Professor of Psychology. And he, back in 1998, was elected as the president of the American Psychological Association. When Marty gave his presidential address during that particular session, he had two platforms. One was about preventing ethno-political genocide, but the other one was a call to the field overall, that psychology had done many wonderful things in terms of focusing on pathology, the things that are going wrong in life. And out of the 14 major psychopathologies, we were really making a lot of progress, where 9 out of those 14 were really very treatable. But Marty proposed that there was something that was more than just the absence of disease. And from his own clinical practice, he said, as a psychologist myself, he said, I could cure or work with a patient on remediating their depression, but so often I found out that what was left was an empty person, somebody who still had an empty life and still did not seem as though they were flourishing. So he hypothesized that there was something more to life, that there was something that was on the north side, so to speak, and he gave a call out to the community at large, the research community, that it was time, instead of funneling all of our research dollars merely to pathology, psychology, that psychology needed to begin to pay attention to the brighter side of life and to begin to understand it from a scientific perspective. And he, along with Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who some of you are also familiar with his work in flow, they had proposed that the field of psychology should study individual traits or states, such as our emotions, our traits, like our character strengths, and then also our institutions. What sort of positive institutions might create flourishing? So since that time, the field of positive psychology has really taken off. Now, we often say that positive psychology is a field that has a small age and a long history, because the questions around flourishing and happiness have really been explored by humans, not just for the last 20 years, but actually for centuries, through some of the major philosophers and others. But in the time since 1998, the focus was really on creating an empirical science of flourishing. And so now there are hundreds of researchers from around the world. We have an International Positive Psychology Association. The literature has really taken off related to topics that range from everything like flow to mindfulness to subjective well-being. We see positive applications of positive psychology as people are looking at how can we take this empirical science and these theoretical foundations and apply them in a manner where we are helping people to flourish, perhaps in their workplaces, in their schools, in one-on-one settings. Since that time also, the very first degree program was created, and that's the one you're here to hear about today, which is the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program, which was started in 2005. And as I had mentioned, the International Positive Psychology Association. So there's been a lot that has been going on. In addition to that, Marty, as he began to explore some of this work, also founded the Positive Psychology Center. So the Positive Psychology Center was founded at Penn in 2004, and it has three main pillars, and I'm going to speak to you just briefly about some of these today. They are application, research, and education. So let's break those apart a little bit and let's explore. I'm going to start with our middle pillar, which you might consider to be the keystone at the Positive Psychology Center, which is research. So there's been a number of research projects that have emerged from the Positive Psychology Center. The Character Lab was originally birthed. Angela Duckworth was at the PPC and created the study of grit and began to explore that when she was originally at the PPC. In addition, the World Wellbeing Project, which is a project that looks at what we call big data, right? All the information and the posts that people are making on social media, and how we can actually take the temperature population-wide around well-being just from the things that people are self-reporting about themselves on social media. Topics like transcendence, which has actually been explored by one of our MAPsters, David Yaden, and then also our primals research, again, another MAPster that went on to get his PhD at Penn, Jared Clifton, has been working on that. The last one that I'll mention, and these are just a handful of some of the research projects that have been going on at Penn, is the Humanities and Human Flourishing Project. And I'm going to get to the individual who's birthed that initiative in just a couple of minutes, so you'll get to know him. On the application side, Penn is actually one of the larger initiators of large-scale applications related to positive psychology, and especially resilience. Our own Karen Rivich and Judy Salzberg have been working originally on translating the Penn Resilience Program into applications at larger scale, including the U.S. Army, and then it has really exploded from there and mushroomed out to work with professional sports teams, corporations, the Department of Justice, many other institutions. The last piece that I'll mention is the education pillar, and that's the one that you're here to hear about today. So we have three different arms of education within that education pillar, with our Coursera course on the foundations of positive psychology. Some of you may have explored that. It's really focused on supporting lifelong learners in learning about the field of positive psychology in a very broad brush approach. Our Applied Positive Psychology program, which is our undergraduate certificate through the Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences. That's a 6-course certificate that we have. And then finally, the MAPP program, which is our Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. So let's dive into MAPP and talk a little bit about that. Now, I had mentioned to you the Humanities and Human Flourishing Project, and so this is the person I was going to revisit with regard to that. So James Powellski is the founding director, not only of the Humanities and Human Flourishing Project, but of the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program itself. When Marty began to think about and to create this vision of flourishing, 51% of the world flourishing by 2051, he realized that what the world really needed were a lot of practitioners who would be ethical scholar practitioners that would be able to take the science of positive psychology and meaningfully translate it into different areas around the world. So Marty said, we need a master's program in order to begin to develop and educate some of those practitioners. And so they decided to start the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program, but he needed a little bit of help. So James was the person who came to help him. James came to Penn from Vanderbilt University. As I mentioned, he is the founding director of the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. James is also the founding executive director of the International Positive Psychology Association, as well as managing his own area of research, which is related to the humanities and the impact that they have on human flourishing. So you might say that James is a busy guy. I would absolutely concur with that. At some point, we're going to learn how to clone him, but for now, we're delighted that he's here with us at Penn and leading our programs. So when James came to Penn, he was charged with starting this master's program. And any master's program, when it gets off the ground, much like many other programs, takes a little bit of time, right, for the word to get out into the ether, for people to begin to be interested in this and even know what positive psychology might be. So the deans had said to James, keep your expectations low. We would be delighted if we got maybe 10, maybe 11 people in the first year of the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. So that's what they assumed that they would get. But this was the class that they actually got. So this is MAPP 1. This is the first year of the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. And as you can see, it's a much larger number than 10 to 11. Since that time, every class has been about the same size or even a little bit bigger. So the interest in positive psychology has not waned. And one of the reasons I think for that is that, you know, as you look around the world and you look anywhere humans are, humans wish to be well. I can't think of one human that does not wish to be well. And so being able to explore these really meaningful topics and how they apply in our lived daily experience is powerful for business professionals, for people in medicine, for people in the legal field, for people in coaching and other applications of positive psychology. So one might think that the number of people that would tail off, but that really has not been the case. And this is actually a picture of our 10-year anniversary of the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. We had about 150 alums that came back to us at that time. Each year we host a summit during the spring where our alumni can come back, and the number of alumni who come back and join us has been growing each year as the number of our graduates continue to grow. So this year we're in our 17th year of MAPP. We have about 600 alumni that are out there, and it's truly a community that has been growing strong. So at this time, we're going to dive into the actual design of the MAPP program, and I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Laura Taylor, to take you from here.
Thank you so much, Leona. So as someone who is a prospective student for the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program, I imagine you have questions about that educational design. MAPP is intended to provide you with extensive academic preparation, and we look at the theories and empirical foundations of positive psychology while we deeply consider ethical application. It is a 1 calendar year of full-time study, and it is a professional master's degree that enables scholarly practitioners in areas in which they are already expert. There are no licenses or credentialing, as the populations our students work with are by and large non-clinical populations. So that's important to be clear about. And our intention is that our students will be applying and helping individuals to flourish in not just a psychological context, but in any context where we find a human being. Specifically, we want to mention that MAPP is not a research master's, and a small percentage of our students do elect a research master's thesis if they intend to go onto a PhD. They utilize the capstone project for that purpose. But 95% of our students are really interested in becoming the scholarly practitioner who thinks about how to take positive psychology out into the world, as Leona was saying, towards that goal of flourishing for 2051, 51% of the world, to be taking that project of the capstone, which is a culminating project for our students, and really focusing on what does that ethical application look like. For the model and format of the program, we are a structured hybrid model. It includes a combination of both synchronous on-site classes and asynchronous distance learning between those on-sites. We value synchronous learning and the ability to be on campus or in our virtual classroom. So when we are able to connect safely back on campus, students will travel back to Philadelphia for on-sites. However, currently our on-site classes are being conducted on Zoom to prioritize the health and safety of our community. And we've recently announced that we will also be doing this for 2022 and 2023 in light of the uneven nature that's happening for the global pandemic, to ensure that we can welcome an international class into our program. So that announcement is on our website if you'd like to look at the details of that, but we will be virtual from 2022 to 2023. We will not require students to travel to Philadelphia during that year. And we will make decisions moving forward about the format as things evolve. All right, that specifically, I just want to also think a little bit about what that distance learning period looks like, because we'll be using a virtual platform called Canvas to support us during that time. But what does it really look like to have these on-site classes and then transition to asynchronous learning? Leona? Awesome. Thank you so much. So this is our schedule for the fall of 2022. As someone who is thinking about joining us in our classroom, I encourage you to look at these dates. You can also find them on our website by navigating to course and curriculum in the left-hand toolbar, hitting that little plus sign and choosing program format and schedule. Just scroll down a bit and you'll see the 2022-2023 dates for which applications are currently open. Now, importantly, you'll look at this and you'll think, oh, well, these are the dates I need to be fully available for the MAPP program and my learning. I'll be in live classes. I'll be engaging with other students. That's great. Oh, but don't forget, we have these distance learning periods that exist between all of these dates. So you are not just in class during these weekends. Leona, can you make sure they understand? Aha, this is in 2023 as well for the spring. They have these 5 dates. And yes, distance learning between. So you are full-time study during your course of MAPP. This educational design is really wonderful for multiple reasons, because it permits students to continue working full-time. We recognize that students don't need to stop life and work and family and other commitments to be able to take advantage of the MAPP program. Now, we have a little asterisk next to full-time on the slide for a reason. Our definition of full-time is approximately 40 hours of work a week, not 80. Right? We want to ensure that you're maintaining some balance as a student, because full-time study also requires commitment. We do not require residency in Philadelphia, which enables our students to participate virtually in the coming year and or travel to Philadelphia in years where we're able to do so safely. It allows a rich, diverse environment for students to come from as far away as Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia, many of the places that you entered into the chat as we started the session. We value and have that diverse international community in our classroom, and that enhances our educational experience by increasing our student diversity. But it also enables leading faculty from a variety of institutions to come into our classroom for these on-site weekends. So this intentional design is something that really gives us an opportunity to enhance our learning in the MAPP program. Let's think a little bit more about the faculty. We are so lucky to have strong standing faculty at the University of Pennsylvania in positive psychology, and this is an amazing strength at Penn. But we're not limited to our faculty here at Penn, because we're able to invite a variety of institutions to share diverse perspectives in primary areas of research, such as moral psychology, community psychology, physical activity and exercise, and a variety of other areas. I'm not going to go through naming each individual that you see here, but know that the guest lectures are helping to broaden and deepen our students' educational experience and enrich our classroom by compounding on the expertise we have here at Penn through some of the experts you heard Leona introduce earlier, but also bringing in these diverse perspectives. Organizational psychology hasn't been mentioned yet, and I'm eyeing Jane Dutton there in the middle and thinking, oh yes, that also needs to be included. So as we're going through, we think about the MAPP courses, and let's take a little bit of time to think about what you might experience as a MAPP student in the program. And it's likely to be similar to what we have going on right now, which is the introduction of positive psychology by our own Dr. Martin Seligman. Yes, that's Marty for all of those MAPP students. We're delighted that he continues to value teaching in the MAPP program. We expect that to happen for as many years to come as is possible with his human body. And so we are delighted for that. He loves teaching in MAPP. The research methods and evaluations course with Jer Clifton and David Yaden, who Leona mentioned, were both MAPP students who have now gone on to their PhDs and doing their own wonderful research. The Foundations of Positive Interventions with Dr. James Powellski, and the Perspectives of Wellbeing course that's coordinated by our own Leona Brandwene, who you have met on this call. And it is enabling us to really think about the diversity of perspectives that come into what helps a human being flourish. We have Michael Boehm, Paul Bloom, Jacqueline Mattis, John Haidt, Isaac Polipczynski, John Rady, and Barry Schwartz, who came this year. Also, let's think through the spring semester. So once we have deeply grounded our students in the theory, we also start to look forward to applying positive interventions in institutions. This is your spring course, also coordinated by our lone Leona Brandwene, and it allows you to not only experience additional perspectives in the field, but also dive into a service learning project and really get your feet wet on what does it look like to take the research of positive psychology into an institution, and how might you attune that ethically and importantly so that they can have the most benefit out of that. We also have positive psychology in individuals with our own Penn instructors, Judy Salzberg-Levick and Karen Rivich, who, as you heard earlier, also run the Penn Resilience Program and have been working on that for years. Positive education is taught by Allison Mackey, who is also at Penn, and she is a neuroscientist. So that is incredible diversity and just access to someone who is able to talk about that in depth and help you learn about not just what does education look like in a traditional classroom, but how do we as humans grow across the lifespan? And what does education of our brains and bodies look like for us to grow and flourish? And then, of course, the humanities and human flourishing, so that we can look at culture, the humanities and the arts, and how those impact our well-being as well, alongside Dr. Powellski. It culminates in that project that I mentioned earlier. It is the summer semester is your capstone. And this is wonderful. It's a time where you can have an independent project that is integrating what you've learned as a student into advancing the application of positive psychology within your area of expertise and interest. Students love being able to do this. They are guided by an advisor, and it really is a time in MAPP to take advantage of your personal learning goals and be able to move something forward and be of contribution. Now, I am mindful that we have been talking to you for a while, and I want to just take a moment to little pop quiz here. Which of these are true? Take a minute to look at the slide. We have A, the University of Pennsylvania's MAPP program was the first of its kind. B, the founder of positive psychology, Martin Seligman, still teaches a course in MAPP. C, a strength of the MAPP program is diversity in all of its faculty. D is A and C, and E is all of the above. Why don't you just pop into the chat what you're thinking might be? Oh my goodness, we can't fool any of you. You're paying such wonderful attention.
Laura, we have some scholars here.
Yes, I could tell. Yes, so it feels good to get it right, doesn't it? I agree with you. So please know that that is your first pop quiz successfully done. And let's just do a little bit more to see if you were paying attention. One more set of questions. Which of the following are true? Most MAPP students work full-time while attending in MAPP. You can expect to spend 25 hours a week on your work in MAPP. MAPP prepares students to apply positive psychology within their own domain of expertise. A and C, or all of the above? A little variability here. This is good. This helps highlight what worked and what did not so far. Okay, great. So let me, this is wonderful. This is how we know what's landing with all of you. And So it is actually E again, all of the above. So I don't think I actually mentioned this explicitly during our educational design. So I want to back up and share that MAPP is designed for full-time work and study, but it is full-time work and full-time study. So we talked about the specific hours of full-time in asterisks being about 40 hours a week. And our alumni have been surveyed as they graduate, and they spend on average approximately 25 hours a week on their work in MAPP. So you can expect that that time commitment will exist for you. And there is some variability based on reading and writing styles and speed, or personal learning goals and availability as well. So know that this is an average across the population, but this is something that we want to ensure allows you to prepare effectively as a potential student who might be coming to MAPP. So thank you so much for teaching us where we need to focus our attention and energy to ensure we're answering all of your questions well. If you have not already done so, there is a Q&A feature. I see some of you are using that feature at the bottom of your screen, but I encourage you to look at that feature. If you have another question as we move forward, enter it into the Q&A, and also upvote others' questions that maybe we haven't gotten to yet, so that we are understanding how to best communicate and use our time. All right, Leona, on to you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Laura. Okay, that was a fantastic overview of the MAPP program. And all of you who are here are thinking about, what's it like to actually be there, and what might it be like to be a student? So let's chat a little bit about that right now. I'm going to share just a couple of images from our MAPP students. And as you can see, not only are they very engaged, but often you'll see, a lot of them are concentrating, but you'll also see them smiling there too, right? So part of what we try to do is positive education is not just one of our spring courses. It's something that we attempt to do and embody within MAPP. MAPP absolutely is hard work. It's a rigorous education, but that does not mean that it can't be fun, right? And that we can't enjoy that learning together. Deep intellectual inquiry is really an area that might be a little bit unexplored when it comes to well-being, but we often find that many of our students say that that this is one of the most powerful aspects to their learning experience. I'll also mention that we've got students who are coming to us from a variety of different areas. So do you remember back at the beginning when we asked you to enter where you were from in the chat? So that diversity of geography we try to also have represented within our MAPP classroom, so that not only are you getting the perspective of what somebody in New York City might be thinking of with regard to MAPP, but hopefully you're also able to compare and contrast that with the experience of somebody who's in the Philippines or in China. And so that's really one of the strengths and one of the rich aspects of our student experience within the MAPP program. In fact, you can see here that we have over 30 countries that our students have hailed from. You might see your country represented here, and if not, then perhaps it might be represented there in a future information session. In terms of age, we have a wide range of age, right? So you can think about diversity through a lot of different lenses. The youngest MAPPster that's ever come to us was 21 years old when she was accepted into MAPP. Our oldest MAPPster was 70 years old when he was accepted into MAPP, but the range is somewhere around mid-30s, right? So often we see a lot of mid-career professionals who are coming into MAPP. I would say roughly about 25% of our classroom might be individuals who are fresh out of undergrad, right, who are using MAPP perhaps as pre-professional training before they go on to their next step. I'll use as one example, one of our alumni, Jordan Feingold, who just recently got her MD, used the MAPP program specifically and deliberately before she went on to medical school, because she wanted to have that lens that she could then bring into her studies when she went on to medical school. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of that sort of diversity. This is actually an image that one of my classmates, Kathy Snyder, who graduated in 2010 with me, had pulled together when we were in the classroom, so that we could really take a look at where people were coming from around the world. You might imagine, so if you look at the lower right-hand corner, and at that time we were on campus, so I had 4 classmates who were coming, 2 from Australia and 2 from New Zealand, and so you might imagine that for me, who I was traveling about 4 hours to get to Philadelphia, I was really paying attention all that much more when I knew how much my other classmates had invested with a 22-hour flight in order to make it to Philadelphia. That's not necessarily necessarily in a virtual environment, and often we're able to collect in ways that are a lot easier on people's bodies by collecting in a virtual environment. So I had mentioned that humans everywhere wish to be well. Where do humans spend a lot of their time? Often at work, right? And so many of the professions that we engage in are our own way of enacting our own purpose in the world. And we see that in the diversity of folks who come to the MAPP program. So we have individuals that have been represented from the field of health, right? I had mentioned medicine. And that's not just doctors and physicians, right? There's a lot of other professionals that are represented here within the MAPP program, from nurses, physical therapists, dietitians. We've had a physician's assistant, even an orthodontist who said that he wanted to make sure that not only was he fixing people's smiles, but that they really had something to smile about. In education, we have individuals ranging from administrators in education to classroom providers and classroom teachers in education that are trying to think about how to structure educational environments in a way that not only advance academic outcomes, but advance well-being outcomes, because both of them done together can really support one another. In the field of business, you can think about, business itself is so diverse, and that ranges from people who are in the C-suite to people who are on the front lines and engaging with other individuals. You can see some of those professions represented here, and so it really is a wide array, and you can think about anybody who's in the field of business and how that might work in terms of their applications of positive psychology. In the field of law, we've actually got quite a large N of attorneys that have come through the MAPP program and are integrating positive psychology in legal education, in private practice, in leadership, both at the state and national level in their bar associations. And really the diversity continues on from there. So we've got social workers, people who work in nonprofits. We've had political leaders at the state and local level. We've had individuals who are engineers and people representing the military. So there really is a wide array. And as I had mentioned that, about within the last 5 years or so, we're seeing about 25% of our classroom come from recent college graduates. Okay, so we had said that the MAPP program was an area where people could be deeply intellectually engaged and to enjoy that process and build some bonds between them. And so those sorts of celebrations are really a part of our overall MAPP experience. And just because that happens in person does not mean that we don't find a way to have that extend to our virtual space too. So we do have lots of ways to have fun together. This was one day last year, our MAPP 16 group, they had come to us and they had christened themselves as the Oranges. And so they came to us in their, quote, team uniforms with everybody wearing an orange t-shirt and surprised us in class one day. And sometimes those surprises also come in a variety of different ways. This was another day that they had surprised us by just sharing a little, again, walking the talk of positive psychology and sharing some gratitude back with our program staff and with our faculty for the incredible experience that we had had together. So we do have a lot of fun together as a learning community. There are lots of ways that we remain engaged, and the bonds that we build are pretty remarkable. And even for, our MAPP 16 and our MAPP 17 are the two classes that have been connecting with us remotely entirely through the course of the year. And the bonds that they have developed are so profoundly deep, and in many ways are no different, and in some ways even deeper than our students who came to us on campus. It's really been a remarkable experience. We see folks from all around the world, and they also have opportunities. We often will flip the classroom and give our students an opportunity to present. We find that it's not merely a one-way street, right? It's not just faculty that are communicating information to our students, but as you see, our students are bringing so much richness. Think about yourselves. Think about the amount of life experience and professional experience that you've had and how you can bring that into the classroom and leverage that in some of the conversations that really help to enhance the diversity and richness of that sort of experience. The conversations are pretty profound and they go on for a long time, even when you become an alum and you've graduated from the program. So let's chat a little bit about our alumni. And the biggest question that we often hear is, what can I do with a MAPP degree? So here you see a couple of our graduates from some of our, I would say within the last 5 years, recent MAPP graduates. So let's dive in and chat a little bit. So these are some numbers that we've actually pulled from our Alumni Association website. If you go to mappalum.org, don't do it now, you can do it after this session, but mappalum.org is a pretty rich website that's run by our MAPP alumni and our MAPP Alumni Association. As I had mentioned, we've got a pretty rich number of people who are graduates of the program, and they go on to do a lot of different things. They're integrating positive psychology into some aspect of their work. So we've got business owners, we've got folks that have written books, and I would say that this number of people who have written books is actually quite small. This data is from a couple of years ago, and I am aware that we've got a number of alumni that are coming out with new books. Many of our alumni engage in writing, whether those be articles that are in popular press outlets or journal articles that are in peer-reviewed and scholarly journals. We have a variety of alumni that are contributing both to the field and translating the field out into other areas. Our alumni also serve as leaders in the world. So not only have we had alumni who have been leaders in the International Positive Psychology Association, so we've had quite a few individuals from within the MAPP program. Laura Taylor is one of those. I actually was a member of the board, and I'm on the Council of Advisors. We've got Jenny Brennan, who was one of the most profound influencers within the International Positive Psychology Association and others. We also have folks that are starting new associations. The International Positive Education Network, their founding executive director was a MAPP alum. The Positive Education Schools Association, we've got a MAPP alumna who is engaged there. Two MAPP alumni were engaged in the Canadian Positive Psychology Association's initiation, the Chinese Positive Psychology Association, the Colombian Positive Psychology Association, the Japan Positive Psychology Association. Each of these were our MAPP alumni were intimately involved in serving as leaders in the initiation of some of those organizations. We also have MAPP alumni that are teaching at the university level, bringing the work of positive psychology and the knowledge around the theoretical foundations and the empirical research that underpins positive psychology out to many more people in the world. Our MAPP alumni also can post their work and their capstones on something that's called Scholarly Commons. So Penn wishes to share its knowledge with the world and bring research into practice. And so there is a repository called Scholarly Commons through which researchers and students at the University of Pennsylvania can post their information and share it worldwide. This is an image of the number of downloads of our capstone projects around the world. And as you can see, a couple things you notice when you look at this. So number one is the geographic diversity of how many people are downloading capstone projects. In addition to that, you can look at the numbers because the numbers are pretty huge too. I actually just looked this morning and I'll share a couple of numbers with you. We've had almost 684,000 downloads of capstones since the inception of the MAPP program. 684,000 times. Those have been across 19,000 unique institutions around the world and 227 countries. Wow, right? So positive psychology is hot, as people might say. There's a lot of people that are interested in this work, and it's a wonderful opportunity for our students to be able to share their work worldwide. So here you see some other examples. We do, as I mentioned, have a summit each fall where our alumni come back and are able to mix with our students. Again, whether that be face-to-face or in a virtual environment, we still host that summit and we are able to have some really rich and robust interactions between our students and our alumni. So, how might you apply to the MAPP program if you were interested in being in that seat in the classroom? Let me take a pause here and I will turn things back over to Laura so that she can talk to you a little bit about our admissions.
Thank you so much, Leona. So as a prospective student, you are probably aware that our application deadline for our admissions cycle to begin fall of 2022 is March 1st. So just about a month and a half from now, right? March 1st, 2022 is when we will ask for all of your related materials for your MAPP application to be complete in our system. That looks like your resume, your essay, which includes answers to the questions that are already on our website and available to you. So go on and take a look if you haven't started that yet. 3 letters of recommendation. I saw in the Q&A that someone is asking, how does that work? And essentially, when you go into the application, you're going to include an email for your letter writers and designate them as a letter writer. And when that happens, they will be asked to upload a letter into our system so that it can remain anonymous. There are also transcripts that you're going to want to include from your undergraduate and graduate study. Yes, all of them. That includes any classes you might have taken in a summer institution. And so just know that if you happen to take a summer course between your freshman and sophomore years in undergrad and it's 20 years later, we probably still want that. So ensure that you are gathering those transcripts together and getting all transcripts. For schools that were outside of the United States, they need to be evaluated to be sure that we can equitably and fairly compare them across the application pool. So please do use one of the evaluator services for international transcripts. You can either use Educational Perspectives and Certifile through the application itself, or you can use World Education Services. It's up to you. We are still requiring a GRE if you are less than 3 years out from your undergrad. For this coming year, that means if your bachelor was earned later than spring of 2019, then you are required to take the regular GRE, not the psych GRE, the standard GRE. For TOEFL or IELTS scores, that is if English is not your native language, and we will ask you to do that so we can ensure your success in our program. It is a fairly intense program with lots of reading and writing English, and we want to ensure that you are able to get the most out of that learning journey. So please do look on our website. We have specific scores listed there for both the GRE and the TOEFL. So any questions around that should be able to be solidified when you just take a little bit of a deeper dive into the website for the application overview page. And then admissions decisions. If someone who applies, you want to know when you're going to find out what's going on, of course. So all decisions are released by the end of June 2022 in order to begin in the fall. So just know that that is our standard timeline. Now, MAPP is not just a commitment of your time, but it's also, we understand that this personal commitment extends into being a financial one as well. Graduate study requires that. The tuition and fees of the university are billed by semester according to your enrollment. And since all MAPP students take all the same courses, those same 9 courses we talked to you about earlier in this session, the costs are relatively predictable. So we encourage you to begin thinking about how you are going to finance your degree now. You can find our tuition rates broken down by semester because that's how it's billed on our website. And of note, the exact tuition rates are released each spring for the following academic year. So that will likely update in around April. And just be sure that you're attuning to that. Financial aid at the graduate level is largely comprised of loan opportunities, and we have a few scholarship opportunities. The Christopher Peterson Memorial Fellowship, Beishantang. We've had students successfully use Fulbright or Rotary scholarships if they are international students. There are veteran benefits, and there are other opportunities that may exist through your employer, a nonprofit that happens to be in your area of expertise, or other areas. So we encourage you to be curious as you're thinking through what is it that you're bringing into the classroom and what might apply to you. If you decide to apply for the Christopher Peterson Memorial Fellowship, please know there is a secondary application online, and it needs to be completed alongside a completed MAPP application no later than March 15th, okay, for consideration. And then the federal loan process is something, if you are a citizen in the United States and you want to look at the US direct loans and federal loans, you can do that by completing your FAFSA online first. Studentaid.gov is where you go to learn more about that. And you can also look through the website at the Student Registration and Financial Services at the University of Pennsylvania. They're amazing. They have a wonderful set of resources. Please know that that will walk you through what are the possibilities for graduate loan, both in terms of federal direct, graduate plus loans, which are beyond So if you were to need more than $20,500 towards your education to pay for the fall and spring semesters, then you would go into the Graduate Plus loan territory. And then there are also options within private loans and institutions. It'll help you kind of weigh some of the pros and cons and what that looks like as a financial commitment. Please know that our colleagues at SFRS are delighted to work with students once they have been accepted. So there is additional assistance that can happen if you have further questions around that, if you have been given an offer during the process of admission. All right. The last thing I want to say around that, actually, sorry, Leona, is that the admissions timeline, we complete our process by the end of June. So please do start thinking about how you might manage your time as a MAPP student. Again, if you're working 40 hours a week, which most of our students are continuing to engage in full-time work, you will also be committing about 25 hours a week, give or take, depending on your reading, writing speed, and personal learning goals to MAPP. So what does that look like? Who do you need to talk to for support? Does that look like talking to your employer to ensure all of the on-site dates are clear and freely available to attend synchronous class? That synchronous class, you can expect to be fully committed during those on-site dates. So please do clear your calendar. We tend to have class in this year's group from about 9 a.m. Eastern to about 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll look at the time zones of the incoming cohort to determine if that is still an appropriate time slot moving forward. And we recognize that we can't please everyone. So that requires some sacrifices from different time zones, and we're fully aware and do not take those lightly. We have conversations with students around their own learning goals to support that. We also know that, we want you to be successful in the program. So start thinking about what it is you need to be a potential MAPP student. If this is not your year, please apply in a year where it is right for you. I saw someone in the Q&A ask, if this is not my format, I really want to wait until you're back hybrid. Can I defer? We would encourage you to apply in a year where it's the right format for you and it feels like the right decision. So if you're ready and excited to be in a virtual environment, if that gives you the opportunity to take advantage of a program that you might not be able to do if you had to travel to Philadelphia 10 times a year, great, it's your year, apply now. And if it's something that you're like, after really giving it consideration, my learning goals lie elsewhere, then we might ask you to hold that application to a year where it would be right for you, just to ensure that you're able to take full advantage of the learning opportunities in front of you. I think that is where we are with applications. Leona, let's move on to questions.
Let's do it. Okay, wonderful. I have not been able to see the Q&A, so I'm going to invite our colleagues Erin and Nicole to help us out a little bit by sharing with us which questions are questions that we should be addressing here today. So Nicole or Erin, would you like to pitch us our first question of the day?
Yes, there's a little bit of a theme actually. For on-sites, some people are saying, will there be any chance that we'll be able to be in person? I really would like that. And then there are other people saying, there's no way I can come in person. Are you sure this is going to be fully
remote?
virtual?
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Nicole. We are committed to delivering a virtual version of MAPP for FY 22-23. It's announced on our website. We think it's really important that prospective students like yourselves are able to make the commitment and understand what they're applying for, right? When they're completing their applications, so that we can all be of service together. So we understand that may be disappointing to some of you and really exciting to others of you. We love synchronous learning. We're committed to synchronous learning regardless. We think there is great value in the development of that community. We absolutely intend to return to a standard hybrid when it is safe to do so. And we also value an international community. And right now, the distribution of the global pandemic is not even. And so we want to ensure that we are able to have that robust, diverse experience in our classroom when it is safe. So for the fall of 2022, through that academic year, for MAPP 18, that will be our 18th class of MAPP, we will be virtual. You will not be required to travel to Philadelphia in that year. You can read more about the decision on our website. if there are opportunities to, like, if Penn decides that they will have a graduation on campus, we might have a hybrid graduation where you don't have to come, but you could come if Penn allows that to do. But I don't want you to feel like you're hanging on through a whole year in virtual learning just for the possibility to get to meet people in person at graduation next year, right? So please do consider the virtual learning. Leona, I see you would like to weigh in, please.
Laura, you know me well. So, yeah, I just wanted to, I hear, right, a little bit of the subtext in that question around, is one format better or is another format better? So I'll share with you a conversation that we had as a team as we were going into the 2020-2021 year. And that commitment as a team was, we said that if the MAPP experience typically looks and tastes like an apple, right, that the MAPP remotely delivered experience was not going to be a rotten apple or half an apple or a different flavor, something that was substandard in any way. Instead, we said that MAPP experience was going to be more like an orange, right? It's a different kind of fruit, equally as sweet, delicious in a different way. Some people prefer oranges, some people prefer apples, and that's perfectly okay. But both of them are high quality experiences. It's part of the reason we showed you that picture of our MAPP 16ers. They actually christened themselves the Orange class because they felt as though, and that they were Sweet 16, because they felt that the experience was so profound in a remotely delivered format that they didn't feel as though they were sacrificing anything. So I share that with you because I recognize that there are going to be personal preferences. If you hate citrus, hold out for a face-to-face here. If you could go either way and you think you could enjoy, right, either type of fruit, wonderful, right? And if you're somebody that's committed to a particular type of delivery and fruit, then please do consider us for the 2022-23 year. Okay, I'll stop there. All right, Nicole and Erin, can you help us out? What's our next question?
Next question. PhDs. I'm interested in maybe after MAPP getting my PhD. Will MAPP ever consider creating a PhD at Penn? Is Claremont the only PhD program? How will MAPP help me if I decide I want to go on to get a PhD?
Yeah, great. So one thing that I want to share is that when you get your PhD, right, it's typically not in positive psychology, but it might be in a particular area that is informed by, and your area of research focus happens to be on topics that would be subsumed under the concept of positive psychology. Now, at the University of Pennsylvania, we do not have a PhD program in positive psychology, even though there are PhDs in psychology. And that is a part of that is because Marty feels really strongly that the MAPP education is a terminal degree for the practitioner, that a practitioner is going to get everything that they need through the Master of Applied Positive Psychology in order to go out and begin to apply positive psychology in the world. Now, if you are somebody who loves to do research and you're interested in furthering your education and doing a PhD, then what we would recommend to you, and we've had a number of alumni that have done this in our classroom, you need to have research integrated into your master's degree. We are not set up to be a research master's, but about 5% of our students actually do an empirical study for their capstone in order with the intention of that actually serving as a foundation for them to begin to apply to PhDs. We've mentioned to you a couple of times, we've got a large number of alumni actually that are pursuing doctoral degrees. And as Laura had mentioned earlier, we actually have 2 alumni that got their PhDs under Marty that are now teaching within the program. Another alum who got his PhD under Marty, who's now at Stanford University. So it is a possible pathway, but it's not the most well-used pathway at MAPP. By and large, the MAPP degree is designed to serve practitioners. It's a professional degree. And again, if you were interested in going on to get your PhD, we would encourage you to have a conversation with us about that pathway and about whether or not MAPP is the right pathway for you to take in order to get there. Okay, Nicole, back to you.
Okay, next question. A couple of these have come in, so I'm consolidating them. I've taken some Coursera classes or I've taken some other classes. Can I transfer those in so I don't have to take all 9 course units of MAPP?
Great question. And the answer is no, not really. MAPP is intentionally designed curricularly to complete those 9 courses as a cohort, right? So you're going to be completing the 9 courses in MAPP. I also saw in the chat, in the Q&A, someone is asking, can I just take a couple of courses? The answer to that is no, it is a cohort design. So our cohort comes in and takes the 9 courses in sequence. It's intentional to enhance your own learning. We love that you have a background and interest in positive psychology that is bringing you into our classroom, and we're excited to hear about it. We actually think it will probably make your application much stronger, as we're going to intentionally ask you about what's your vision for application in positive psychology. And so utilize anything you learned from Coursera or other areas to help bolster that application and integrate that for your vision and expertise in that essay submission. But know that as far as transfer credits go, coming in, the answer is no. Taking in piecemeal, it is a cohort design. So just the cohort will take those classes. And then if you are looking about whether or not those would transfer into a PhD, you have to ask the PhD program. There's variable results around that. So I would encourage you to do your due diligence and research to see what, if any, of that may transfer.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura. I think that is all extraordinarily well stated. And I am also mindful that we are getting close to time right now, and we want to be respectful of people's time. So I think that we are going to go ahead. Just one other comment on that as I'm thinking about it. MAPP is not going to duplicate what you did in the foundations course or in the APOP, in your APOP studies. MAPP is graduate study. You are really extending your learning into real world design and a fusion with your area of professional expertise. So it will feel different than the work that you've done in the foundations course. It will feel different than the work that you've done in APOP or if you've done other positive psychology certificates. We love that you've done that study because it helps you to provide a further foundation and advances your thinking a little bit further. But importantly, graduate study is not going to duplicate what you've seen in some of those other places. Okay. I had mentioned that we were getting close to time, and I didn't want to lose the opportunity to make sure that you have this bit of information in your hands. So we've spent about 60 minutes now talking about this program that we know and love. Laura loves it. She's an alumna of the program. She's an instructor in the program. I love it. I'm an alumna of the program. I'm an instructor in the program. We really work very hard within this program, not only to provide you with a world-class educational experience, but to really integrate you into a community and a professional community that can support you into the future. So if you can see yourself in our classroom, we would encourage you to, you can go to penpositivepsych.org and explore some of our educational offerings. And as a reminder, March 1st is going to be our deadline for application. So we welcome any questions that you might have. I know that Nicole and Aaron have been working like crazy to make sure that they're answering some of your questions in the chat. So please, we encourage you to continue to bring those applications. What we might do at this point is I think that if you do need to leave after an hour, we're going to bring some close to the call right now. If you'd like to hang out for a little bit longer for some further Q&A, we would be happy to do that. So Amy, I think that we're after this farewell, we're gonna close the recording. I'd encourage my colleagues to say farewell to you before we go. Laura, Aaron, and Nicole.
Thank you so much for coming. It's a delight to see all of your energy and questions. Please continue to reach out with any questions we were not able to answer live today.
Absolutely. And a huge thanks to Amy, to Aaron, and to Nicole for all of their hard work behind the scenes. We're going to go ahead and we will stop the share. Wish all of you well and to have a wonderful day. And if you do have a little bit of extra time on your hands, we can spend just a couple more minutes in the room having some conversation.